Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about the game The Pillars of the Earth. As you can see here, it's based on a novel by Ken Follett. I've never read that novel. I did see there was an HBO miniseries long time ago. I don't even remember when that was, but quite a while ago I did see that. This game came out, I think, in 2007, and then I think there was a reprint not too long ago, 2018 maybe. My version's from 2007, so if there was any changes in the reprint that recently came out or came out in the last few years, I'm not sure about that, so I'll be going over how to set up and play this version that came out in 2007. So let's get started with how to set up. Okay, first thing you'll do is place the game board in the middle of the table. Players will then choose a color, and first thing they'll do is take the 3 master builder pawns. They'll then take the worker pawns. There's 7 small workers and 1 large worker. The large worker just counts as 5 smaller workers. Players will start with 3 starting craftsman cards that will have their color on the back of the card. And then you can give each player a game summary card that matches their color. Players will place their 3 master builder pawns in this black bag. Players will take their 3 starting craftsman cards and place them face up in front of them. They should have mortar mixer, woodworker, and stone cutter. You'll place the 6 large wooden cathedral pieces and the die somewhere next to the game board. The last person to visit a cathedral will be the first player, and they'll take the large piece of the cathedral and put that in their play area. I'm just going to do that for my blue player here. I'm going to be playing with green and red for a 3-player game, but blue will be my first player, so he'll take the large part of the cathedral called the nave. Each player will have 2 scoring markers, circular scoring markers. Each player will place one of theirs on the number 2 space with this red flag on the victory point track. So I'll do that for blue, green, and red. The starting player then places his other scoring marker on the number 20 space marked with a red flag there of the gold track. The next player in clockwise order puts theirs on the 21 space, and the next player on 22, and so forth. If you had a 4th player, they would put theirs on the 23. You'll take these craftsman cards that have these numbers on the back and sort them by the number on the back, and then shuffle each of those stacks and place them in piles next to the game board. So you should have 6 stacks of craftsman cards. Each stack just has 4 cards in them, and you've shuffled them and put them each in their appropriate pile. You take the cards with this back, the resource cards, shuffle those, and just place them near the game board. You find the privilege deck that has this back on it. Separate out the 2 privilege cards that have these symbols on the back. You'll see all the other privilege cards do not have that. Separate out those 2. Then take your remaining privilege cards and shuffle it and remove 4 from the game without looking at them. After you've shuffled and removed 4 from the game, you can shuffle that deck again if you want. Then you place it on top of the 2 cards that have this symbol, and then just set that deck somewhere near the game board. You find the event deck that has this back on it, shuffle that. After you shuffle the event cards, you remove 4 and then place the remaining cards here in this spot where it says events on the game board. You then place your resource cubes on the game board in the appropriate resource spaces. So in the forest, you put the brown wood cubes. In the gravel pit, you place the tan colored sand cubes. And in the quarry, you place the gray colored stone cubes. In the Kingsbridge resource market here, you'll place one brown cube here for wood on the brown stalls, one tan cube down here for sand or one on each of these stalls. So you'll have 4 in each market, and again for the gray cubes up there for stone, like so. You take one blue metal cube and place it on this tent in the King's Court that's surrounded by the other blue tents, and then just place your remaining metal cubes somewhere nearby the board. Place the black pawn somewhere near the board. It may come into play later. Place the cost marker next to the 7 space in this area. Place the 4 gray workers up here in Shiring Castle, where it says Shiring Castle. And that should complete setup for 3 players here, red, green, and blue. Got our cards, our bag with our master builders, privilege cards, event cards, board with the resources and scoring markers, everything ready to go. So let's move on to how to play. Alright, so how do we play? Well, the game is played over 6 rounds, and that can be seen with the 6 rounds of Craftsman cards. Each round is broken up into 3 phases. So at the beginning of the round, the first player will draw the top 2 cards from the privilege deck and put them here in the Kingsbridge spaces on the board. From the current round's Craftsman's card, you draw the first 2 and put them on the Shiring spaces here on the board. You place the 2 remaining Craftsmen right here. There's spaces along the bottom of the board. You put the first 2 from your remaining Craftsmen. Then you draw 7 resource cards, sort them by type. And then you'll place them at the bottom of the board, like so. So you'll have the 7 resource cards and 2 Craftsman cards there. And every round 2 resource cards won't be drawn. Alright, so then you move on to the first round, which is the selection of resource cards and craftsmen. So beginning with the first player, he'll choose 1 card from the card pool. You can take a craftsman. If you take a craftsman, you pay the amount in gold by sliding your marker down on the gold, subtracting however much you paid for that craftsman. So this one costs 3, this one costs 5, and then you put it in the row with your other craftsman. Now you can never have more than 5 craftsmen. If you already have 5 craftsmen and you take another one or acquire another one, then you have to replace one that you already had and just discard the other one out of the game. And we'll see more about what the craftsmen are for later on, but I just wanted to mention that. So again, we're in the selection of resource cards and craftsman's phase. So beginning with the first player, they'll select one of the cards. So I talked about the craftsman. If you take one of those, you pay gold. If you take one of the resource cards, it's either going to be gravel pit, where you'll be able to get sand later on, the quarry, where you'll be able to get stone, and forest where you'll be able to get wood. And the amount of sand or stone or wood that you'll be able to gather later on is shown down here. But if you decide to take, for example, this, you want to get sand and you want to take this card, you take it, you place it below your craftsman, but then you have to place that many of your workers in the gravel pit. So you would have to put 7 workers in there. Remember, we said the large worker counts as 5, so you would put a 5 and 2 1s. So you paid 7 workers or placed 7 workers in the gravel pit to take this card, this resource card. Now the next player in turn order will take one of the remaining cards, either paying gold or placing a number of workers in the appropriate spot depending on which resource card they take. And then the next player in turn order will do the same, choosing from the remaining cards. Then it will be back to the first player, and it continues like this, players choosing resource cards until they don't want to choose any other resource card or can't choose any other resource card because they have no more workers or the cards are gone. So either when all the cards are gone or a player doesn't want to choose or can't choose another resource card, they can pass. Once you pass, any remaining workers you have in your area that you haven't used, you place up here in the wool mill, and that will earn you some gold later on. Once all players have passed, if there are any cards remaining in the card pool, they just get discarded. The resource cards go back into the resource card pile. Well, they'll be used in the next round. Any unchosen craftsmen will just be discarded out of the game. And then we move on to the Master Builder assignments phase. Now the current first player will grab the bag that has the Master Builders in it. He'll randomly draw one out, and then whoever's pawn that is, whoever's Master Builder pawn that is, has the choice to either place that Master Builder on one of the spots on the game board. These spots that have spaces like this are where you can place your Master Builder, but it will cost you 7 gold to place it. So you can place it and pay the 7 gold by sliding your marker down 7 gold, or you can choose to pass, in which case you move the cost marker up to the next spot and just place your pawn there. Then the first player will draw another pawn, and whoever's that one is, then they have the choice now to pay 6 gold to place their marker on one of the spots. So maybe red chooses, yeah, okay, I'll place mine here, but now he has to pay 6 gold. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry. Then the cost marker moves to the next one, and the player will draw another one, and so forth. So then now red's drawn again, so now he or she decides, do they want to pay 5 to place their thing now or pass? So maybe they decide to pass. The marker moves down to the next, and you keep on going down. Now the player who's drawing from the bag does have the option where once per round, if they draw one out and they don't like what they drew, they can put it back and draw again, but that's only once per round. But anyway, you'll keep doing that, moving the cost marker down. Players will either place their pawns or pass till you get to 0. Once you get to 0, any additional pawns that are drawn out cost 0 to place. Once all the pawns that are remaining in the bag are placed, then you go back to the players that have passed, starting to the farthest on the left, and then they get to place their pawn for free in one of the spaces. Once all the pawns have been placed, then you move on to phase 3, which is the game board actions, and you resolve them in order First, starting with the events, you'll flip the first event card over, and it will be something either good or bad. If it's got a seal on it like this, it's usually good. So in this one, the king celebrates a great victory over his foes. Each player receives 5 gold. So they would move, or each player would move their gold marker up 5 spaces, and then that event is just discarded. Some event cards are negative effects, and you'll see that in space 2, the Archbishop's office, if a player had placed their Master Builder here, then they can choose to be protected from a negative event, or they can just choose to get 1 resource from the market. So if it's a positive event, I would suspect they'll choose to go ahead and get a resource from the market. If it's a negative event, they can protect themselves from that negative event, or they can accept whatever the negative event is and still get a resource from the market. So their choice if they placed a pawn there. Alright, space 3 is the wool mill. You'll resolve that next. So as you can see, every player that has a worker there would get 1 gold per worker and then take their workers back. So green would get 3, and they could move their gold marker up 3. And blue would get 2, and they would move theirs up 2. Now you can never have more than 30. If you get to 30 gold, that's just the max you can have. Next, you move on to space number 4, Kingsbridge. If you placed one of your Master Builders here, if you placed it here, you can take this privilege card. They usually give you some benefit. This one, Archbishop Thomas, extends his protective hand over you. In a later round, you may ignore the event card after it is revealed. It says 1 time, so you can use that 1 time. Once you use it, you discard it. This one's an immediate. If a player put their Master Builder here, they would get to take this card. Crying Madonna is brought to Kingsbridge. You immediately receive 3 victory points, so you'd move up on the victory point track 3 spaces and then discard that card. There's some that stay with you and you give you a bonus throughout the game. Just depends on what you get there. Alright, the next space to resolve, space 5, Kingsbridge Priory. It's pretty simple. If a player placed their Master Builder here, they get 2 victory points, so they just move their marker up 2 victory points. If they place their pawn on this one, they get 1 victory point, so they just move up 1 victory point on the track. Spaces 6, 7, and 8 are where you'll claim your resources. So if you chose a resource card from the forest, you would put that back with the other resource cards and claim your 2 wood. Put that in your personal supply and then claim your workers back. Put them back there. Green would claim 4 wood. Then they would turn this card back to the resource cards for use in a later round, and then they would claim their workers back, and so forth. Then you would do for the stone and sand, depending on what resource cards you had. You'd claim your resources, put that show on the card how many you're going to get, put the resource cards back, claim those resources, and take your workers back to your area. Alright, next is space 9, where you have the King's Court. If the first player that places a Master Builder here in the King's Court would place it here, and then when we resolve this, they would get to take the medal and put it in their play area. Then it's time to determine the taxes, so the starting player would roll this dice. Whatever they roll, that's how many gold that each player will have to pay in taxes. However, if you did place a Master Builder here in the King's Court, then you're exempt from paying the taxes. So anyone that placed here, the first player always goes here and they get the medal, but you can place your Master Builder here and that still exempts you from paying the taxes. But if you didn't place a Master Builder here, then you owe whatever taxes were rolled in gold, and you would subtract down the track there. If you don't have enough gold, for instance, if you owed 3 gold and you only had 1, for every 2 gold that you can't pay, you have to subtract 1 victory point. And for odd numbers, then you round down in your favor. Next we move to spot 10, the shiring. If a player placed a master builder here, they would get to take this craftsman for free. You don't have to pay the cost as you did for the craftsmen that were down here in the card pool. If you placed a worker or a pawn here, a master builder pawn here, whichever one you place it next to, you get to take that craftsman for free. And again, you put it in your line with your craftsman. And again, the rule that you can't have more than 5 craftsmen stays in place. So if ever you would take a 6th craftsman, you have to replace one and remove it from the game. If nobody took these cards, if nobody placed a master builder pawn there, or only one person, the remaining one just gets discarded out of the game after you resolve that space. Similarly with the privilege cards, if nobody took them or only one was taken, the remaining one just gets removed from the game. It won't stay for the next round. Alright, after you resolve space 10, you move to space 11, Shiring Castle. If a player placed their master builder pawn here, they get to take 2 of these workers and place them in their area with their other workers, and they'll have 2 extra workers for the next round of the game. Alright, next space is space 12, Kingsbridge Resource Market. We'll just put an example here of blue put 1 on 1 and green put 1 on 2. So whoever, you can have up to 4 pawns there. When you resolve this, the player on the farthest left, they have the first choice of either buying one of the goods for the market. You can buy, you can buy as many as you want, sand, wood, or stone, for either 2, 3, or 4 a piece. So like blue could decide he's going to buy 2 sand, so he would pay 4 and remove the 2 sand and put them in his area. Then green might decide they were going to buy 2 wood, so they would pay 6 and they would take the 2 wood and place them in their supply. And then blue might decide they were going to sell 1 metal. You can sell metal for 5, but you can never buy metal. You can only buy the stone, the wood, or the sand that's available there, but you can sell metal for 5. But you can also sell other resources. So if blue had wood, maybe he wants to sell his wood, he would get 3 for each. But you don't, the wood you sell, you don't place back in the market, you place it back in the resource pile. So players take turns buying and or selling resources that are in the market here, though you can't buy and then resell the same resource in the market during the same round. So you couldn't buy up all the wood to keep the next player from getting it and then later reselling it. So you take turns buying and selling until everybody's done, and then that space is resolved. Once you're done doing whatever you're going to do, you place your master builder back in the bag. And that's the same for every space after that space is resolved that had a master builder on it, you place it back in the bag. So when you're at the market, when you're done doing whatever you're going to do, you place your master builder back in the bag, and then whoever's there can continue taking turns. You can't have another turn after that. After that, we go to 13, where you contribute to the building of the cathedral, and that's how you'll make victory points from your craftsmen. You're building components to help work on the cathedral. So starting with the first player, he'll look at his craftsman and what resources he has. So you can see this one, he can trade 3 sand for 1 victory point, and he can do that up to 3 times if he has enough sand. In this case, he would only have enough to do it once, so he would put his 3 sand in and score 1 victory point, so he'd move up 1 on the victory point track. He still has 1 sand left. This one, the woodworker, lets him trade in 2 wood for 1 victory point. He could do that up to 4 times, but he only can do it once because he's only got 2 wood, so he would return his 2 wood to the resource market and earn another victory point. Doesn't have any stones, so he can't use this one. He has one resource left over, which fine, he can keep for later rounds. You can only ever keep up to 5 leftover resources. If you had more than 5 leftover resources, you would have to return them to the resource pile. So the next player in player order resolves his, so we would come over here to the red player. He has some stone. He can trade 2 stone for 1 victory point. He can do that up to 4 times, but he only has enough to do it once. So he would turn in his 2 stone, get 1 victory point, and then he has this one where he can do 3 sand for 1 victory point. So he would turn in his 3 sand and get an additional victory point, and so forth. So each player uses their resources and their craftsmen to create victory points. Now, each round, the craftsmen get a little bit better, but you may end up getting a 5th or a 6th craftsman where you have to replace one of your current craftsmen. However, you'll notice that your starting craftsman and some of the other craftsmen, if it's an upgraded version of the one you currently have, like this mortar mixer, the starting mortar mixer lets you change 3 sand for 1 victory point. But this mortar mixer here that came out in the first round, he's still a mortar mixer, but he's an upgrade, so he allows you to change 2 sand for 1 victory point. But you'll notice some of these have an exclamation mark: the mortar mixer, the woodworker, and the stone cutter. So if you ever replace one of those with another craftsman, then that could be a penalty. So if you ever don't have a mortar mixer, then you can't score victory points from masons. So if this player did not have a mortar mixer like he has here, he would not be able to score any victory points using this mason. So you always have to have a mortar mixer if you're going to use a mason. If you don't have a stone cutter, no stone sales in the resource market. So if you don't have a stone cutter, you could not sell stone. If you placed one of your master builders here, you would not be able to sell stone. And if you don't have a woodworker, you can't buy any wood from the resource market. So if you replace your woodworker or don't have a woodworker, an upgraded one or this one, again one with the exclamation point, then if you placed a master builder in the resource market, you're not allowed to sell wood. Alright, so after all players have resolved they're contributing to the cathedral, step number 13, then the first player will place his component of the cathedral on the board, building that portion of the cathedral. If a player placed their master builder here on space 14, change the starting player, then they take a new piece of the cathedral and they become the starting player. Otherwise, if nobody placed a master builder there, then the new first player is just the next player in clockwise order from the last start player, so they'll take a new place at the start of the cathedral, showing that they're the new first player for that round, and then you'll start a new round. And the first things you do before you start the phases of the new round is restock the resource market if any were sold or bought from there. You would place a new medal at the King's Court if somebody had gone there and taken the one that was there. If you had gotten the 2 gray workers in the previous round and used them in the current round, you would then return them to Shiren Castle. You return the cost marker back to Space Saving on the cost track. You would draw 2 new privilege cards from the privilege deck and place them in the Kingsbridge spaces. You would then, from the next round's craftsman cards, draw the first 2 and put them here in the Shiren Craftsman, put the second 2 down here in the card pool. You then shuffle up the 9 resource cards and deal 7 of them out into the card pool. And then you would start the next round with the selection of resource cards and craftsmen from the pool, just like we showed at the beginning. So the game continues through 6 rounds. At the end of the 6th round, the cathedral should be complete, and the player with the most victory points is the winner. If that happens to be a tie, then amongst the tied players, whichever of them has the most gold is the winner, and if that's still a tie, then the game just ends in a tie. So that's it. Pretty simple. I'm going to set the game back up right how it was at the beginning after setup, and we'll go through a few example rounds. Alright, I believe I got everything back to where we completed setup and did the beginning of the round steps, setting out these cards and these cards. So we're ready to start the first phase with the first player, who's the blue player, and we start with the selection of resource cards and craftsmen. Alright, so we'll say the blue player, he wants to get this mason, so it costs 5 gold, so he's going to pay, wait, these should have been here. Alright, he's going to pay 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He takes this mason, puts that in his supply of craftsmen. He's only got 4, so he's good to go. And we'll say the wood, the red player here, he wants to get stone, so he'll put 10. He'll take this quarry that it's going to give him 4 stone, but it costs 10 of his workers, so he'll put 10. That's a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Alright, 10 workers in the quarry, so he keeps this card. Now we go on to the green player. And we'll say the green player wants to get some wood, so he'll take this card, so he's got to put 6 workers in the forest. So he'll put his 5 and then a 1. So that's 6 in the forest. So now we come back to the blue player. The blue player wants to get some stone. There's 1 quarry card left, costs 8 workers, so he'll take that card, put it below his craftsman. He's got to put 8 workers, so he'll take his 5 and his 3 small, so that's 8. He's put them in the quarry. Alright, now we go back to the red player. He only has 2 workers left, and all of these remaining resource cards take more than 2 workers. He could pay 3 for this wood worker that changes wood into gold. So he decides he's just going to pass, so he's going to put his remaining 2 workers in the wood mill, and so he's out now. Alright, we go to the green player. The green player's got 6 workers left. Maybe he wants to get some sand, so he's going to take this gravel pit, and that will cost him 4 of his workers, so he'll put them in the gravel pit. Alright, now we go to the blue player. The blue player's got 4 workers left. He could get this forest, which is going to supply 2 wood for only 3 workers. Can't get this one because it costs 9 workers, and this one costs 7. Or he could get the woodworker that costs 3 gold. But he's just going to pass as well. He's done, so he's going to put his 4 workers in the wood mill. Alright, red pass, so we don't come back to him. We come back to green. Green just decides they'll finally pass now. So they put their 2 workers in the wood mill, and that's going to end that section, the resource selection phase. So these resource cards will just go back into the resource card pile where they'll be used next round. This craftsman that was not selected is just discarded out of the game. Alright, now we start the master builder assignment phase. So the first player will take the bag with the master builders. He'll draw one out. Remember, he has the option once per round to, after he draws one, to put it back in the draw again. But he'll go ahead and go with this. So he drew red. So the red player decides if he wants to place it on one of the spots on the board for 7 and pay 7, or if he wants to pass. Yeah, I don't think he doesn't want to pay 7, so he'll pass. So it'll get placed there. So the blue player will draw again. This time he draws his own color. He will just say he's going to go ahead and place. So he wants to place here. It's going to cost him 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, the cost marker moves down to 5. Draw again. This time it's red again. The red player decides maybe this time he will place it, so he's going to go here. Alright, he's got to pay 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, we'll move down on the cost marker. First player again draws one. This time he draws green. Green decides if he wants to place or pass. Green decides he's going to place. He'll go here. So she's got to pay 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Moves down to 3 cost. First player draws again. Gets red again. Red decides they will go ahead and play, and they're gonna go. No, they'll go here, and that's gonna cost them 3. 1, 2, 3. And the cost marker goes down to 2. All right. First player draws another one out. It's green. Green decides they will go ahead and place, and they go up here. So that's going to cost them 2. So they pay 1, 2. Cost goes down to 1. Blue draws one out. He will place, and he's going to go up here. Cost goes down to 0. And blue draws himself again, and he decides, of course, he'll place because it cost him 0, so he'll go there. And there should be one more in the bag that also costs 0. That's green. Green decides they will go here. And there's no more in the bag, so now we start with the ones that passed. There's only one that passed that was red. He gets to place that for free. So he will go here. Alright, that's all the Master Builder, so that ends the Master Builder assignment phase. So now we move on to the game board actions. We start with the event, which we already know what that is from our how to play. The king celebrates a great victory over his foes. Each player gains 5 gold. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. If that had been a negative event, the blue player would have been able to have protection from that if they wanted to, or they can take a resource from the market. So since they didn't need to be protected from that, they're going to go ahead and take a resource from the market, and they're going to take a stone. So they just put that in their area, and now they can remove their Master Builder and put it back in the bag. Alright, now we go on to the wool mill, and players will receive money for their workers in there. So the blue player will receive 4 gold. 1, 2, 3, 4. The red player will receive 2. Take their thing off there. 1, 2. And the green player will receive 2 gold. Alright, now we move on to space 4, Kingsbridge. The green player gets to take this card, where in a later round they can ignore an event card if they want. So they just put in their play area, put their pawn, Master Builder pawn back in the bag. The blue player gets to take this one, and they immediately receive 3 victory points, and then this just gets discarded. They put their pawn back in their bag. They got to receive their 3 victory points. 1, 2, 3. Alright, now we move on to space 5, Kingsbridge Priory. The green player gets 2 victory points, so they'll move up 2. Put their pawn back in the bag. The red player gets 1 victory point, and put their pawn back in the bag. Alright, now we move on to 6, the Forest. Green's the only one with a forest resource card. they get 3 wood, and then this just goes back in the resource deck. They take their 3 wood, put it in their area, and take their workers back. Alright, now we go on to 7, which is the quarry. Blue had 1 resource card from there. He gets 3 stone. So he'll take those and then take his workers back. Red also has 1 in the quarry. They get 4 stone. So they'll take 4 stone, take all their workers back. And then we move on to the gravel pit. Green's the only one in there. They get 3 sand. So they take their 3 sand and take their workers back. Alright, we move on to space 9, the King's Court. The first player rolls to see what the taxes are. They're 4 gold. The red player takes this metal, and they are exempt from paying the 4 gold. The other players have to pay the 4 gold. So blue will pay 1, 2, 3, 4, and green will pay 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so we'll take that master builder and put it back in the bag. Move on to space 10, which is the shiring. Red's the only one that put one there. They took this tool maker, so they take that. They don't have to pay a cost. They just put it in their area with their craftsman and take their pawn and put it back in the bag. And this one wasn't chosen, so it's just taken out of the game. Alright, we move on to space 11, Shiring Castle. Green placed a pawn there, so they get to take 2 gray workers that they'll be able to use in the next round and place their pawn back in the bag. Alright, we move on to Kingsbridge Resource Market. Blue is the only one that placed there, so he can buy and sell until he doesn't want to anymore. So first thing he's going to do, he's going to sell 1 stone for 4. Now it doesn't go in the market, it goes here to the back to the quarry, but he gets 4 gold. And then he decides he's going to buy 2 wood, so that costs him 6, 3 each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Takes his 2 wood, puts it in his area. And then that's all he wants to do, so he passes, removes his pawn, and places it back in the bag. Alright, now we move on to space 13, where the players take victory points from their craftsmen, building the cathedral. So we start with the first player. So he's got 3 stone, so he's going to use this craftsman once. He can use it 4 times, but he's only doesn't have enough stone to use it 4 times, so he'll use it 2 stone for, oh no, actually he'll use this mason, which remember he can use the mason because he still has a mortar mixer, so he can do this twice, 1 stone for 1 victory point. So he'll do 2 stone for 1 victory, or 1 stone for 1 victory point, so 2 stone will be 2 victory points. He can only use that twice, so he can't use this other stone. He does have this that he could have used. He should have probably kept that stone he sold, and he would have been able to get another victory point by using 2 stone for 1 victory point. But he'll just save that for the future. Then he has this 2 wood, which he can use here to convert into 1 victory point. So he'll return those 2 wood, and he'll get 1 victory point for that. That's all he can do, so he'll just keep this 1 resource. Remember, you can keep up to 5. Alright, we move to the red player. He's got some stone. So it looks like he can do this twice. He's got 4 stone, so he can do this 2 times. He can do it up to 4 times, but he doesn't have enough stone to do it 4 times. So 2 stone for 1 victory point, so he can do that twice for 2 victory points. So red gets 1, 2. He doesn't have any sand or wood. He does have a metal, and he has this tool maker. Now this does not consume the metal. But as long as he has at least one metal, which he does, he gets 2 gold. So he will move up 2 gold. Alright, and that's all he's going to be able to do. So we move to the green player. He's got 3 sand, which he can exchange for 1 victory point. So he, or she, I guess, does that. And then they have 3 wood, so they can do this. 2 wood for 1 victory point, and they'll just end up keeping that 1 extra wood. So that gives them another victory point. Alright, and that is all they're going to be able to do. So then the first player places the piece of the cathedral on the board. Nobody placed anything on space 14, so they don't become the starting player. So then just the next player in clockwise order becomes the starting player. So they will take the next piece of the cathedral to mark that they are the starting player, and red will be the starting player for the next round. To prepare for the next round, we will restock the resource market. So we'll put a stone there and 2 wood up here. We will place a metal back in the king's court. Then you would replace the gray workers that had been purchased in the previous round. This player got these gray workers this round, so he doesn't give them up. But in the prepare for the next round phase, he will give those up and put them back in the Shiring Castle. Place the cost marker back at 7. Place 2 new privilege cards in the Kingsbridge spaces. Take 2 craftsmen from the top of the second round deck and place them in the Shiring, and place the other 2 craftsmen down here. Let me shift this player's cards down so they don't get in the way. Alright, then we'll shuffle up the resource deck and deal 7 resources out to this row. Alright, so that is done. 2 resource cards are not used. And then we start the next round with red as the first player and the selection of craftsmen and resources. So we'll do one more round and then wrap it up. Alright, we're ready to start the next round with the red player as the first player this round. We're in the select resources and craftsman phase. So the red player is going to decide what they want. Do they want one of these other craftsmen? A potter can do 1 sand for 1 victory point. Yeah, maybe they want to get that. So they've got 4, so now they've got 5, so they're at their max. If they were to acquire another craftsman, they'll have to replace somebody. They got to pay 5 gold for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Green decides they want to get some wood resources, so they're going to take this forest card, and they'll need to put 6 of their workers, so they'll put their large one that's a 5 and the smaller one for 6, so they'll put them in the forest. Alright, and that pays for that card. Alright, we move on to the blue player. Blue player wants to get some stone. He's going to take this one for the quarry that costs 10 of his workers, so he'll take that. He'll put his large 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 workers. Alright, back to the red player. Alright, red player decides they're going to get some sand, so they'll take this gravel pit. They got to put 4 of their workers in the gravel pit, so there's 2 and 4. Alright, and move back to the green player now. Green player decides they'll get some more wood, so they'll take this other forest card. That's going to take 3 of their workers. So they'll put those 3 workers in the forest. The blue player only has 2 workers left, so they couldn't get any more stone. They could get this 2 sand, with their 2 workers, so maybe they'll do that, or they could spend them for 2 gold. They'll go ahead and take this gravel pit and put their 2 workers in the gravel pit, so they'll be able to get 2 sand later. Alright, so they're done. Alright, back to the red player. They still have their 5, or their, their 5, so they still have 8. I think they're going to take this quarry to get 3 stone, so that'll cost their remaining 8 workers. I'll put them in the quarry. Alright, got those stood up. Back to the green player. He's still got 5. He's got his 2 gray workers and his 3. And just so happens this one costs 5. Of course, he could take this mason. But I think he'll take the quarry. So he'll put his remaining 5 workers in the quarry. And he'll take this one, so he'll be able to get stone. Alright, back to blue. The only option he has is if he wants to take this mason. He's already got one, but this one can only do 2 times, or this one can do 3 times. So he may want to replace that. But he'll have to pay 4 gold. I don't know. For right now, he's just going to pass. Red also passes, and green says they'll go ahead and take this mason and pay 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Blue passed. Red already passed. Back to green. There's nobody left in there, so that's going to end it anyway. So that's going to end this phase. Alright, we go to the Master Builder Assignments phase. Red is the first player, so they'll take the bag and draw Master Builders out. So they draw a red. Now remember, he has the option once per round to put one back and draw again, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to put his back and draw again. Now if he draws red again, he's just out of luck. No, he drew blue. So blue has the option to place for 7 or just pass. And I think he doesn't want to pay 7, so he's just going to pass. Alright, so now red draws another one. Drew green, so now green has the choice to place for 6 or just pass. And I think green... what does green want to do? Green will pass as well. Alright, so now we go there. Alright, next, red draws the next. Alright, blue comes out again. He can place for 5. So he'll go ahead and go here, and he'll pay 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, red's got to draw next guy. This moves down. Alright, blue again for 4. He's getting low on cash, so he's just going to pass. Alright, now red comes out for 3. He is going to go ahead and place here, so he'll pay 3. 1, 2, 3. Alright, we'll move down to 2. Red again. Red will... he'll go to the market, and he's got to pay 2. So 1, 2. Next one drawn is red again. I forgot to move this down. It should be on 1. Red will... he'll go here. He wants to be exempt from the taxes, so he's got to pay 1. And now we move to the 0. Green comes out. Green will go here. And 0 again. So green decides they want to go to the market. And now that's all the master builders in the bag. So now we go back. Blue gets to place his for free. He thinks he'll be exempt from the taxes. Now green gets to place theirs for free. they'll go here and get this carpenter. Now blue has one more he gets to place for free, and he will go to the market as well. Alright, so now we finished the Master Builder assignment phase, so now we go to the game board action phase. So first thing we do is reveal the top event card. A new town wall must be built to protect the cathedral. Next round, each player may only place 2 Master Builders. So we need to keep that in mind, that the next round, players can only place 2 of their Master Builders. And if a player had gone to the Archbishop's office, they would be immune from that event next round, but nobody did, so in the next round, everybody would only be able to place 2. So when you're doing that, if you draw out a third Master Builder for somebody, you just set it aside and keep drawing. So only 2 will be placed. Alright, so now we move on to the wool mill. Actually, nobody has any in there, so they won't collect any gold. Now we go to Kingsbridge. Nobody chose this one, so it just gets discarded. The green player did choose this one, so they get this. Each round you receive 1 additional wool production. Now the green player does have this, so in a later round they may ignore the event card, but I don't think they're going to ignore that one. They'll go ahead and take the punishment for the upcoming round, but their pawn now goes back in the bag. Alright, so that is number 4. We go to number 5, Kingsbridge Priory. Blue gets 2 victory points and put their Master Builder back in the bag. Alright, now we go on to the resource collection. So the forest is first. So the green player is going to collect 3 wood for that one and 2 for this one, so a total of 5 wood. 3, 4, 5, and then they'll just take their workers back out of there. Alright, next we do the stone. All the players have workers in there, so we'll start with the first player. He gets 3 stone, so we'll give those to him. And that's red, so he'll take his workers out of there. Alright, the green player gets 2 stone. And we'll take his workers out of there. And when we come to the blue player, he gets 4 stone. Put that back and get his workers out of there. Alright, and finally we come to the sand. The blue player gets 2 sand. And we'll take his workers. And the red player gets 3 sand. And we'll take his workers. Alright, that is a collection of all the resources. So that's spaces 6, 7, and 8. So we move on to 9, King's Court. So we got to roll for the taxes. The first player does that, so the red player rolls to see what the taxes are. There are 3. Red and blue are exempt from that, and red gets to take this medal. So he'll put that in his play area. Green is the only one that has to pay the taxes because they didn't go to the King's Court, so they got to pay 3. Alright, and we come up here to the shiring. The green player, I forgot to put those pawns back in the bag. Green player gets the carpenter. That's their 5th. I'll put their pawn back in the bag. Now the red player gets the architect, which just gives you 1 victory point every round. However, they've already got 5, so they're going to have to replace somebody. So I think he's going to replace the tool maker. So this one just goes out of the game now. And put his pawn back in the bag. Alright, 11 is Shiring Castle. Nobody went there. 12 is the market. Red is the first player there, so he has the first choice to buy or sell. Alright, his first option is he's going to sell one medal. So that just goes back in the supply. But you can see you get 5 gold for selling a medal. Remember, you can't buy a medal there. So he sold one medal, so he gets 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, now we go to green. He can buy or sell. So green wants to buy 3 sand. So at 2 apiece, that's going to cost him 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, oops. Alright, now we go to the blue player. The blue player is just going to buy that remaining sand for 2. So he will pay 2. 1, 2. Alright, now we go back to the red player. He will buy 2 wood. They're 3 apiece, so he's got to pay 6. And he'll collect his 2 wood. Alright, back to the green player. Green player is just going to pass, so they'll put their pawn, their master builder, back in the bag. Alright, back to the blue player. Blue player is just going to pass now, so they're just going to put their pawn back in the bag. And back to the red player, and red player decides... He decides he's going to buy 1 stone for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, and then back to the red player again. He finally decides he's done, so he'll just put his pawn back in the bag and pass. Alright, that's the end of the resource market. We now move to space 13, which is where the people use their craftsmen to build the cathedral and earn victory points. So we start with the first player, which is the red player. Alright, red player is going to use his stone cutter twice. He can do it up to 4 times, so that's going to cost him 2 stone for 1 victory point, so he's going to do 4 stone. That'll be 2 victory points. So that puts him at 7. He'll use his potter, which can turn 1 sand into 1 victory point. He can do that twice, so he'll do that. 2 sand for 2 victory points. Puts him at 9. The architect just gives him 1 victory point, so that puts him at 10. And finally, his woodworker, he can spend 2 wood for 1 victory point. So he'll spend 2 wood to get 1 victory point. That puts him at 11. That leaves him with 1 metal and 1 sand, which he'll just have left over. He can't use this one. This one turns 1 sand into a victory point, but he's already used it twice, and that's the max, so he can't use it again for this. He does have this, but that would require 2 more sand, so he's done. Alright, the green player is going to use his mortar mixer to turn 3 sand into a victory point. So there's his 3 sand and a victory point. He's going to use his woodworker to turn 2 wood into a victory point. He's going to do that twice, so that's going to be 4 wood and 2 victory points. Alright, he's going to use his mason to turn 1 stone into a victory point. He can do that 3 times. He's only got 2, so he'll do it 2 times. That will be 2 additional victory points. And then finally he's got his carpenter, which can turn 1 wood into a victory point. He can do that twice, which is what he has, 2 woods. So that's 2 more victory points. And that leaves him with 1 wood left over, which he can't use because he's already used this twice, so that's all he can do. He'll just keep that. Alright, that brings us to the blue player. He'll use his 3 sand, his mortar mixer, for 1 victory point. He'll use his stone cutter, 2 stone for 1 victory point. So there's 2 stone, 1 victory point. And he'll use his mason. He can use it twice, 1 stone for 1 victory point. So that's 2 victory points. That puts him at 14. And that leaves him with 1 stone left over, which he can't really use, so he'll just save that for a future round. So that will end the craftsman points from craftsman. So now the first player will place the next piece of the cathedral in place. And then if somebody had done the change starting player, they would take the next starting player piece. But since nobody did, then it just rotates in clockwise order. So now the green player becomes starting player, so he takes the next piece of the cathedral, and he'll be starting player for next round. And then we would restock the board with the privilege cards, with the next round of craftsman cards and resource cards, and put another medal back there, restock the market. This guy would have to return his 2 gray workers to the Shireen. And then we would start another round. And you keep going until the end of the sixth. At the end of the 6th round, you'll have used all the cards in your privilege deck. You'll have finished, you'll have placed all the craftsmen from deck 6, and you'll have your, at the end of the round, the 6th round, your cathedral will be complete, something like that. And then whoever has the most victory points is the winner. So this game's okay. I think I got it somewhere around 2012, played it a few times with my wife and son, and we thought it was okay. I played it again. I didn't play it for a while, then I played it again in 2018 with my gaming friends, and I don't think it seemed to go over too well. I mean, nobody disliked it, but nobody was chomping at the bit to play again, so it's okay. I mean, I don't mind pulling it out. It definitely doesn't take a very long time to play unless you have people with analysis paralysis. But, you know, okay, something I'll play if somebody wants to play it, but it's not something that I just can't wait to pull out and play again. But anyway, there you go. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.